Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. We are continuing our study of the Olivet Discourse, Matthew 24 and chapter 25. And by the way, thank you so much for all of the kind remarks, both private and public, in response to these videos. It's really, really gratifying to know that the videos are being helpful to you, that you're finding answers to the questions that you have had. It truly is gratifying. Now, but before I go on, do not forget the very, very special book special that I'm offering for November and December 2019. Limited time. I've never made such an offer like this before. All right. Now, we're about to embark on a study of the language of Matthew 24, 29 and following. We're going to get there very shortly, in which Jesus said they're going to see the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Then they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Now, many, many commentators take that language absolutely literally, claiming that it refers to the end of the current age. Others, and we will cite scholars as we go along, understand that that language is typical Hebraic apocalyptic language. I'm going to share with you how some former preterists once acknowledged that, and now they deny it. They don't prove it. They don't prove their denial. They just deny it. But anyway, this language is critical to understand. Are we supposed to expect at the end of the current Christian age, and yes, that is a proper term, the coming out of heaven of a 5'5" Jewish man in a physical body? Or is Jesus' description in Matthew chapter 24, 29 and following typical prophetic language that was never ever intended to be taken literally? Now, if you want to see in-depth studies on this, then go to my Now TV channel, my program. It airs every Friday, 9:30 a.m. Central Time. I have posted the links on Facebook, and you can just click on the links. You can follow, or if you want just the audio, you can go to www.fulfilledradio.com, and all of the audio is there. All right. Now, the two-book special, or three-book, actually, Like Father, Like Son on Clouds of Glory, an in-depth examination of the language of Christ's coming, the coming of the Son of Man in power and great glory. Blast from the Past, the truth about Armageddon, and the resurrection of Daniel chapter 12, verse 2, fulfilled in future. As I have pointed out, if you bought each of these books separately, it would cost you $61. Okay? But for continental U.S. orders only, I cannot make this offer to out of U.S. orders. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. Shipping is too expensive. But for continental U.S., all 51 states except Hawaii and except Alaska probably. Total delivered price, $40. Now, if you live in Hawaii and if you live in Alaska, and if you would order this, contact me. We'll do some calculation on the shipping. We'll try to help you out. But please understand the extreme cost of shipping to both Hawaii and Alaska. All right. Well, please take advantage of that. This is for November and December 2019 only. All right. In Matthew chapter 24, Jesus was predicting the events that were going to lead up to his coming and the end of the age. I mean, that's after all, that's what the disciples asked about, is it not? Tell us what shall be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age. So they wanted to know the signs, the sign of his presence. And we'll talk more about that as we get to that particular point. But I want you to notice that Jesus 3 times mentions the appearance of false prophets. In Matthew chapter 24, verse 11, he said, "Then many false prophets will rise and deceive many. Then, down in verse 24 and following, he said, for false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I've told you this before. So here we have Jesus predicting that before his coming, there would be false Christs, false prophets, who would arise and deceive many. It's absolutely amazing to me that I have had, mostly dispensationalists, but I've had dispensationalists say, well, there were no false messiahs in the first century. You know, this is one of those situations that is absolutely remarkable. It ignores history. It ignores Josephus, who talked about men who came up claiming to be the deliverer and the king of Israel. Well, what's the king of Israel? The Messiah. So there were false messiahs. You know, in Acts chapter 5, Gamaliel, warning the Sanhedrin to take care in how they treated Peter and John, said, you need to take care how you treat these men. You need to remember how Theudas came up and just lost the other guy's name. Men who rose, who claimed to be something. They claimed to be deliverers. They were claiming to be kings. They were claiming to be the Messiah. They were going to deliver Israel. That just bugs the stuffings out of me when I have a brain burp like that. And so Gamaliel stood up. You need to remember Theudas and Judas. How can I remember or forget Judas? Okay. So here are two examples. And by the way, Gamaliel could have mentioned many others of the false messiahs, the false prophets that rose. Many scholars believe that Simon ben-Giori actually was claiming to be the Messiah. Others believe that John Giscala had messianic aspirations. Well, they were false messiahs, and they led the people astray. There's no question about this type of thing. And so what we need to do is we need to take a walk through the New Testament. And we need to look a little bit closer at the epistolary evidence in regard to the appearance of false prophets, false apostles, / false messiahs. Oh, what about men who performed false miracles? I've been told by many people, well, you know, that never happened. That never happened. Well, that's simply untrue, both historically as well as biblically. So the point being, guess what? Here is Jesus predicting the appearance of false prophets, false messiahs, false apostles, if you please, before his coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And we can prove from the pages of the New Testament that false prophets, false apostles, and yes, the term may not be used, but false messiahs did arise, and guess what? They claimed to perform false or miracles. They led people astray. This is a study that's very important because we're living in times in which we're told, well, all of this has to apply to a yet future period of time. It has to refer perhaps to the 7-year tribulation period. But nonetheless, it has to refer, and by the way, many people have said, do you know, full preterists, they are the false prophets. One writer by the name of Spargimino from Oklahoma City, just north of me, claimed that Peter's prediction that in the last days scoffers would come, that in the last days false teachers and false prophets would come, that refers specifically to the full preterist movement. I tried to get a hold of Mr. Spargimino to challenge him to a debate, but he evidently hides in a cocoon. He can't be reached. Anyone who would make the claim that full preterists are the fulfillment of Jesus' prediction is utterly desperate. They are abusing the Scriptures. I'm going to show you, as we progress, the first century reality and the first century fulfillment of Jesus' prediction of the coming of false prophets, false apostles, and thus false messiahs as well, again, in the first century. We'll begin that on the flip side. So I'll see you there.